WJXT Studios. This Week in Jacksonville starts right now.
And thank you so much for joining us on This Week in Jacksonville. I'm Kent Justice. This morning, we're going to be hearing from U.S. Representative Michael Waltz about a bill that he's working on, trying to advance on Capitol Hill. We're going to also celebrate a milestone for Jacksonville University. First, though, we're starting our conversation this morning with Jacksonville City Council member Rahman Johnson, who represents District 14. That encompasses a portion of the city's west side. And really, what led me to this, I know we got some other topics, but I wanted to hear, we recently wrapped up Colon Cancer Awareness Month. Right. It's been marked in March for several years, more than 20 years now, but you've taken a role in raising some awareness about this, about colon cancer screening. Tell me what that is, and let's talk about why that's important.
Well, first of all, I had to be forced into it. I have a great medical team at the Mayo Clinic, but I kept putting it on hold over and over. My mother passed away from ovarian cancer, my father from prostate cancer, all my father's brothers from prostate cancer. As you know, Terrence Freeman, my colleague on the council, we sponsored a resolution about Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Both went to get tested. He tested positive and had to go into treatment. So cancer itself, and especially in the African-American community, is something that we know that there are social determinants of health. And I wanted to help, but I didn't know how I could. Outside of me knowing, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention reached out to my agent. I still am involved on the entertainment side, and they had a pitch for a series called Strangers with Colons. And they paired me with, I know, we just paired you with someone.
There's a title.
You've never met him before.
That's what it looks like.
The guy had never seen him before. We sat down and we literally had a one-on-one talking about going to get colon cancer screenings. And it's going around the country right now. And people are actually looking at it and seeing that it's not a bad thing. It's not as bad as it seems, even though you do have to go under.
Yeah.
Those few moments that you don't even know happen are life-saving. Look at Chadwick Boseman and so many others.
Yeah, wow, yeah, exactly. There are so many others that you go, boy, why? Well, and on a personal note, my mother-in-law recently undergoing colon cancer treatment, and when the doctor said, when was the last time you had a colonoscopy? Yeah. Never. That's unacceptable, I guess,
yes,
at this age, right?
And
because
the ages and rates are
it's something you can treat if you catch it early.
It is if you catch it. I have my god sister right here in Jacksonville who went for her colonoscopy, found out about it, caught it early, and now she's living a great life. But just think, what if she had not gone, because she was healthy otherwise. What if she had not been screened? So for me to use the talent God gave me to say, hey, look, just go lay on the table and let them look.
It'll be worth it.
It's so worth it.
Because then you got, either okay, we got to treat something, we got to do it right now, or hey, I'm in the clear for the next 5 years or 10 years or whatever.
Because everybody,
there's always a funny story.
Everybody who's had a colonoscopy has a colonoscopy. I won't call it a horror story, but certainly a funny story to share about it.
Councilman, let me shift topics with you a little bit. JEA's been in the news a lot in the past few months. Criticism over large pay raises, executives living out of state, and then the conviction of the former CEO on this federal fraud and conspiracy charges. So now it appears that the current CEO is heading out the door. Sources have told News4Jax that Jay Stowe is resigning after about 3.5 years leading the city-owned utility. An emergency JEA board meeting that's set for Monday. And we first learned about this Thursday, then early Friday morning, Stowe sent this brief email to all JEA staff. Yeah, brief. Morning, y'all. Thank you, Jay. So, Councilman Johnson, JEA obviously a hugely important, big, valuable city asset. What do you think JEA needs in terms of a leader?
Well, I think leadership is important with someone who can get along with the board. From my understanding, our Councilmember Boylan is the liaison to JEA, right? And so understanding that, I don't know all the specifics. I will be watching, just like you, that board meeting on Monday. What I do know, though, is that our systems that are in place, 2,000 employees in JEA, more than 2,000 employees, systems in place. If the lights flicker because one person leaves, we've got bigger problems. So while I do think that Jay brought an incredible amount of talent and stability for the time he did, we also know that the shelf life of CEOs, CFOs, CMOs, all the C-suite folk are shorter now. And if there is some issue with the board and the leadership, we need board and leadership that's in the same space. But we got to go back to saying the lifeblood of JEA is the team that runs it. And I believe in those employees that are there. Although I am not the liaison, anytime there's something that goes on in my district, as you know, on the west side, because of the vast expanse, when a weather system comes through or any of those things, I am right on the phone to JEA and the teams that they get out. I mean, I had during the last storm, I believe, one of the teams, I think we were on 118th Street and Ricker Road. And there were, some people that lost power. I was on the phone with JEA executives and leadership. They were able to get me in line with people who were getting trucks out. There were some senior citizens that had some health issues. They needed power restored. We had that power restored quickly. So I'm confident that the things I see going on at JEA will continue regardless of who's at the top. But we do want a leader that can communicate effectively with the board. That's important.
So if we have time, I want to get to two other topics. One is the future of the Laura Street Trio. This project in downtown Jacksonville, every time I talk about it, it's like, it seems to be in jeopardy again.
Yes.
Downtown Investment Authority, they've been negotiating with the developer Steve Atkins to restore and renovate what you're seeing here, 3 historic buildings. But now at a meeting this week, the DIA is taking up a resolution that says the developer's latest proposal is untenable, recommending no further action be taken on this proposal. And we spoke with Mayor Donna Deegan about the future of the trio.
I can tell you that those buildings are priority 1 for us to get restored, very, very important to us. So I think that unfortunately in this situation, we gave Mr. Atkins 3 what we thought were very good options through DIA. Unfortunately, he basically came back with something that, once again, the general counsel said this is more of the same and it's not constitutional. So we cannot, in any responsible way, move forward with something that we feel is unconstitutional. So at this point, we're looking at our options, but it is absolutely our intention to make sure that those buildings are restored.
It seems unanimous. You talk about it, and yes, we want to see these buildings restored, preserved. Laura Street Trio, how do we move forward?
Well, I was talking to Dr. Alan Bliss, who came, and obviously he's a champion of those buildings being built or restored, but responsibly. And Dr. Bliss is head of the Historical Society. And as an academic myself now, I believe that it's important that we restore those buildings, but again, it must be done responsibly. And you may remember, I've gotten a lot of flack or jokes about it because it just came out, but when we were debating this during council, I said, this cake ain't baked. So there's nothing we can do. I said it before, I'll say it again. This proposal, the proposals that we saw on council, it was not ready for prime time. So
why not? Asking for too much from the city?
That's a question for the developers. I mean, absolutely too much. When the auditors sat down with me, there were so many gaps and holes in what the developer wanted, and it left the city liable. And my thing is this, and it's okay, if you can't afford to develop it, let someone else do it. And that's been something that we've said over and over. I know there are other more well-capitalized developers who may be interested. Maybe, not saying that the developer shouldn't be developing, but maybe this isn't the project for that developer.
Well, and we're going to run out of time here, but that developer's been working on this for a decade. It's been 10 years for Steve Atkins.
Close to 15 from my understanding. And again, it should be done by now. We should have a hotel there and we should have residences and shops. Why is this not happening? And we can't always depend on the city funds to do it. The city has laid out plans, especially with the General Counsel's Office and DIA and other entities. Here's what we need. And you're right, just because you're rebaking it with more of the same doesn't mean it's the right thing.
Councilman, thank you so much. Congressman Michael Waltz pushing for some changes to address what's happening in Haiti and the connection to Florida. Our conversation next on This Week in Jacksonville. Don't go away.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
U.S. Senator Rick Scott and U.S. Representative Michael Waltz, they've been pushing a bill to expand the reach of Customs and Border Patrol protection along Florida's coastline. I spoke with Congressman Waltz Friday about his bill, extending limits of U.S. Custom Water Act.
And for good reason, is focused on the chaos at our southern border with millions of migrants coming through and what Customs and Border Patrol can and can't do. We also have a maritime, an ocean, a coastline border. My bill would double the amount of territory that Customs and Border Patrol out on boats has to intercept migrants, intercept drug smugglers, or anyone else coming into Florida or the United States coastline. Right now, it's 12 miles. My bill would double it out to 24, and they could work along with the Coast Guard to stop people coming into our shores. We can't have, Kent, Florida's coastline turn into what our southern border looks like. And literally with the bottom about to fall out in Haiti, that's a very real possibility.
Well, I was going to ask, would it be a different immigration or migrant kind of crisis there? Because you're talking about Haiti. We're not necessarily looking at what's coming through the southern border, or are we?
Well, we've had it in the past where we've had waves of people coming onto our shores when you have chaos in one of the Caribbean countries. I don't want to respond to that if it happens. I want to give our law enforcement the authorities to stop it ahead of time. And right now, as it stands, we can only intercept about 10% of what we see out on radar, whether that is drug smugglers in the air or migrants coming in by boat. We just don't have the authorities to push out far enough, and we don't have the resources for law enforcement in terms of the number of boats and assets. I'm trying to give them that. This bill would allow them to push out further and intercept people sooner.
So breaking that down, the 12-mile range, it just isn't enough, because once those boats are detected, we can't get to them. Is that why 24
That's
miles?
right. We can detect them pretty far out, but Customs and Border Patrol has to wait till they cross 12 miles. And by that time, they're pretty close to the shore. This would allow them to push further out, intercept further out, give them more time to intercept migrant smugglers or anyone else that's coming onto our shores.
I understand Senator Rick Scott from Florida is taking this on the Senate side, but is there bipartisan support on this?
There is. It passed out of committee unanimously. I've been working on this for years. And from the Democrats' perspective, it's a humanitarian issue. If you have people, whether it's in Cuba, Haiti, coming from the Caribbean, and they're often floating on these rickety rafts, boats that are old and break down. From a humanitarian standpoint, you can save these people's lives, even if at the end of the day they end up getting deported. So a number of the Democrats are on board. It is bipartisan, and it's going to pass the House, and Senator Scott is pushing it through the Senate. So
one of the things that we've been hearing a lot of is this TikTok ban, this bill that's gone through the House and what have you. As I understand that bill, though, as I look at that, it doesn't even reference or name directly TikTok. It's a matter of all sorts of social media organizations that may present a threat. Is that a national security concern from your perspective?
Well, look, we can't have the Chinese Communist Party having a mechanism to reach 150 million Americans, collecting their data, knowing where our military people are, knowing where, say, a port engineer is located, knowing everything that they like and don't like, and then being able to manipulate algorithms to present the world to them in a way that's harmful to the United States. We're seeing them do this right now when it comes to Israel and Hamas, and they're putting Hamas in a good light on TikTok and Israel in a bad light. So this isn't about banning TikTok. What we've asked in the bill is that they sell it off and that it's owned by the United States. And think about it this way. Would we have allowed the Soviet Union during the Cold War to be able to push their propaganda to half of the population of America? Of course we wouldn't. And then there's others that say, look, well, Facebook collects data. Then what's wrong with TikTok? The difference is the ownership. We can't have our enemies, whether it's Al-Qaeda or the Chinese Communist Party, having the data of Americans and being able to manipulate how they receive the news. We're just asking that an American-owned company buy it, and we're seeing a number of companies already interested.
And I didn't look this up or research this, but if I recall correctly, Facebook isn't used in China, right? China doesn't allow.
They don't allow it. They don't allow Twitter. They don't allow Facebook. They don't allow anything that they don't control. And when it comes to TikTok, which the Chinese company is ByteDance, they actually have different algorithms. They manipulate the algorithms for what the Chinese people see and then manipulate it for what comes to Americans. And that is often eliminating any criticism of the Chinese Communist Party. It doesn't even come up at all, just as one example. And then they manipulate propaganda so that America is shed in the worst light. Again, This is about the Chinese Communist Party and its ability to message to millions of Americans, we got to stop it.
Jacksonville University had a big day of service this weekend. It's also a milestone birthday year for JU. Scott Bacon joins us next on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
In Jacksonville University, lots to celebrate and remember. And so joining us right now is Scott Bacon, JU Senior Vice President of External Affairs. So Scott, seems appropriate, I guess, for me to say happy birthday to JU. Tell us about this milestone.
Well, first of all, Ken, thanks for having us. We really appreciate the time. And yeah, it's our 90th birthday. So 9 decades now for Jacksonville University. And it's been a great run thus far, but as President Koss would tell you, you haven't seen anything yet. It's been, you know, and people know the famous folks throughout the history that helped us build the university, of course, Artis Gilmore,
yeah.
Dr. Francis Bartlett Kinney,
sure.
Dee Brown. I know the last decade a little bit better of our time with President Koss, and it's just been extraordinary, the growth and development we've seen on campus.
I think a lot of people, because of the last decade and the growth and the development, has taken JU on ascending. This trajectory is really something. A lot of people would have said, oh, I didn't expect that JU would go in that direction or be able to be that successful.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has really helped propel us is our commitment to the community. And when President Koss came back to campus in 2012, you know, he found an Arlington that wasn't the same that when he graduated in 1981, wasn't thriving the same way that it was as it was then. And so we made a commitment to be not just in Arlington, but of Arlington, and not just to be a university in Jacksonville, but to be a university that really tries to be a catalyst for the growth and development of the city. And so looking for that and identifying that need, look at the College of Law, look at the four-year medical school. We were the largest market in America without those two entities. And so filling community gap has been a big part of what we've done.
One of the things that we certainly have been talking about in these last several years is that JU takes a focus, and other educational institutions do too, and say, okay, so what's the need going to be in the workforce? What are the areas that companies in Jacksonville or surrounding communities here in Northeast Florida are going to need, because we want to train students to be able to do those sorts of things?
That's exactly right. And we've looked out to the community to try to find those needs and then form community partnerships to bring those things to fruition. We wouldn't have a College of Law without the city of Jacksonville. We wouldn't have a medical school without Baptist and our medical partners and LECOM and Brooks. So we've tried to find what that opportunity is for the jobs that our students are going to get now and into the future.
So in terms of the impact in Arlington, talk about some of those things, some of the things that JU has said, yeah, not just on our campus, but throughout the community nearby.
Well, and Charter Day is the celebration of our founding back in 1934, and it really stems from what the mission of the university is now, which is essentially to turn our students into global citizens through an educational experience that's built around a community-centered approach. That community-centered service was on display for us at Charter Day.
And I think that was just this Friday or what have you. We've got some video. These are students and staff. Is it everybody in the JU community saying, hey, let's go do service?
It's our students, it's our faculty, it's our staff, it's our board of trustees, it's our alumni. This year, our partners joined us with volunteers from the YMCA, from Florida Blue, from Pace Center for Girls. So they joined in all of that. And again, it goes back to that idea of what sort of community steward do we want to be. And for the president, it's this concept of developing the collegiate village, the college town. And through the development of Renew Arlington and the CRA, we've seen great progress outside of our gates with the aesthetics, with the safety, with College Park in partnership with Alex Safakis, with the roundabout. But now we're thinking more about what we can do inside of our gates. On the north end with what we call the medical mall, on the south end with the waterfront development project, we see a number of different opportunities to not only give more amenities to our students, but really accelerate the revitalization of Arlington.
All right, dumbest question you've heard today. Why is that important for the university to help the community nearby?
It's a great question, because that's the first thing when President Koss came back that he identified, that ultimately our fates are tied. And that as far as we can go, Arlington can, and vice versa. And it's also just our civic duty, right? If we want to obviously provide our students with more of a sense of eat, play, stay, and so that they're staying on the weekends and interacting and not necessarily just going to the beach or the river or home for the weekend. But we know it's our duty to try to help the community of Arlington come back, and we know it's happening, and we see it happening right in front of us. And so, you know, you can look at the medical mall where we brought Baptist Health in. The 3rd floor, they brought their primary care. The medical school is going to go next door. Dolphin Point Landing next to that. University Boulevard down to the water on the St. Johns River. On the south side, we're thinking about multi-use development, like the community redevelopment plan identified for that space, catalytic redevelopment. So shopping, restaurants, marina, hotel. In that sports and entertainment and health and wellness space, how can we create a waterfront development that changes the experience not only for our students, but for Arlington? Yeah,
well, it's been impressive, as we mentioned, over the last 10 years, but it's impressive to see the changes that the university makes in that area and really in the region. Scott Bacon, thanks so much for the time today.
Thanks,
Happy
man.
birthday to JU.
Thank you so much.
Right. I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching on air on Channel 4 and the CW17 and online at news4jax.com or even streaming on News4Jax Plus. This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning at this time. And City Councilman Will Lanin is on the calendar, that is, for next time. He just introduced some legislation declaring Jacksonville a Purple Heart City. We're going to dig into that effort with him. And don't forget to check out our podcast, This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition. New episodes dropping Thursdays at 9 a.m. This week's podcast focuses on development in downtown and the collaboration between JWB Real Estate Capital and Corner Lot. You're going to find it right now on News4Jax Plus under the channel This Week in Jacksonville.
See why every day more people are choosing News4Jax, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.